Really.
All these pictures of a Herbig-Haro string, because I want to talk about the Ganymede hypothesis and what that does to a sort of an idea of humans evolving from, evolving from hominids, human evolution.
Okay.
Got it. Beautiful.
So what I've got here is a picture of a Herbig, called a Herbig-Haro string, right? Other people call it a Herbig-Haro object. And you can see, like in some of the areas here, you can see like a spiral of light. This is the question of what exactly a Birkeland current is, and I've seen two different visions of that. And I need to get together with Don Scott with Thunderbolts. Donald Scott believes that Birkeland currents are concentric sheaths of current. Now, other descriptions that I read indicate that they are pairs of currents which twist around each other like an RNA DNA spiral. Okay. And there is a question as to how solar systems form up, a question as to how you get something like a string of galaxies, right? And they're the same phenomenon, just on a different scale. That is like these two currents like you see here, and they have points where they cross.
Yeah. And
at these points where they cross, which are called Z-pinch points, you get electrical short circuiting. Right? Touch each other, and that creates a colossal electromagnetic pinch. Those kinds of electromagnetic pinches do have the power to agglomerate the plasma of space into solid objects like stars and protostars. Okay, now with bodies forming, okay, you can see a string of round bodies, which conceivably could be stars and planets, right? But more likely, those are stars and protostars, including some dwarf stars, including one bright star here, right? Including what might be dwarf stars, which are not as intense. This is the way that solar systems actually do form up in the universe. And that's not what they teach in our schools. What they teach in our schools is simply wrong, right? They teach that solar systems are formed up because they believe that solar systems are all orbital systems like our system is now. And they teach that solar systems form up from swirling masses of cosmic dust or stuff like that under the influence of gravity. Well, I mean, gravity is by 40 orders of magnitude the weakest force in nature. The whole idea is ridiculous. It's like asking the littlest kid in the school to do the powerlifting event with 1,000 pounds in the bar. That's just, there's no way that works, right? So what they teach about solar system formation in schools is completely wrong. The universe generally is a gravity-only cosmology. I mean, they teach that gravity is the only force that has any real effect on what you see in space, right? And that's completely wrong. I mean, that forces them into conundrums, right? Into untenable positions, talking about things like dark matter, and the reason they talk about dark matter is because you can't make a spiral galaxy work with just gravity. It would fuzz out. Give me a moment. There's one picture that I like more than some of the others, and spiral galaxy. Okay, here, this is lovely. Take a look at this. This is a spiral galaxy. And what you can see is something which gravity couldn't begin to do. You've got like two spiral arms, which are being held in a straight line for very long distance. And then what happens is at some point the electromagnetic field breaks down and the material trails off. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do.
You can see where the mouse pointer is here.
What do they call that, Ted? The inverse square law?
No, you're not dealing with.
As gravity breaks off,
you're not dealing with gravity here. It's like you're dealing with electromagnetic force.
Yes, but it's the same. It's basically the same thing. Yeah,
gravity can't do anything like this. And like I said, they try to invent things to let them claim that gravity is doing this. That's ridiculous. Look, it's like they claim that dark matter is like 95% of the universe. They can't detect it. It's like it doesn't show in anything, but there it is, right? It's most of the universe. And we'd be vacuuming that stuff up off of our carpets, like 5 times a day.
Yeah, fairy.
What you've got here is a galaxy. It's a spiral galaxy, but you can see that it's not something which is run by gravity. It's like you've got this one arm which is being held.
Oh, yeah. I see that.
Held in a straight line until some point at which the electromagnetic field breaks down. Then the material trails off. It dissipates and trails off. Okay. Gravity doesn't do things like that. Okay. They teach in our schools that the universe itself is governed entirely by gravity and that electromagnetic forces don't play any meaningful part. And that's just completely and totally wrong. That's 180 degrees from reality. Okay. And they try to use things like dark matter to make that theory work, okay? But here's the problem. Let me explain the problem with that. And this, I think, is the point at which you lost me. Consider the case of our own sun and Alpha Centauri, right? They're trying to claim that dark matter holds everything in our galaxy together. Well, I mean, our galaxy is just a whole bunch of, connections like between the sun and Alpha Centauri, right? The distance, between our sun and Alpha Centauri is typical for the Milky Way galaxy, and you're talking about what it would take to hold, our sun and Alpha Centauri together by gravity, right? Well, let's assume for a moment that you do this little exercise they talk about, which is to scale our solar system to have a radius of about 1 yard or half a yard to a yard, something like that. At that kind of a scale, the sun is going to be about the width of a human hair. The Earth is going to be about 1 inch away from the sun. Pluto is going to be out on the edge of that thing, like maybe a half a yard or a yard from the sun. And at that same scale, Alpha Centauri is going to be 4 miles out yonder. Okay? So it works out just about perfectly between miles versus light years, right? And between that kind of a scale, so that what you're talking about is, for gravity to hold our sun and Alpha Centauri together over that kind of distance is equivalent, over 4 light years, 4.3 light years distance, is equivalent to asking gravity to hold 2 motes of dust together from 4 miles out, and you say, oh, well, that's ridiculous. Say, there's no problem.
That actually looks like
a
hurricane
spiral.
or tornado.
The spiral.
Yeah, just like they do.
Spirals are prominent in the universe. Everything is in a spiral.
So much for Herbig Haro strength and electromagnetic galaxies, right? I mean, galaxies are controlled by electromagnetic force and not controlled by gravity at all, right? I mean, asking, dark matter to fix the problem of gravity not being able to hold spiral galaxies together is ridiculous. You get into that situation I was talking about,
It's absurd.
Yeah, where, the numbers just don't add up, right? And it's not higher math or anything. It's just counting the universe as dark matter, right? That still doesn't add up to enough dark matter to hold anything together from any kind of distance right now. It says that, let's talk about our own solar system, okay? Because that's the thing I really wanted to talk about. Okay, you guys there?
Yes, you got the show.
Yes.
Okay, I wanted to talk about what the Ganymede hypothesis does to all of that, right? If you have any kind of a system, any kind of a theory as to how solar systems form up, you would expect the spin axes of the bodies in that system to all be roughly perpendicular to the plane of the system. Whether you're talking about my theory and Troy McLaughlin's theory, whether you're talking about, the standard theory, doesn't matter, right? You would expect these spin axes of the bodies in the system to all be, near. You'd expect the axis tilts to be near zero, right? You'd expect these spin axes to be roughly perpendicular to the plane of the system. That's not what we find, right? We've got the Sun and Jupiter and Mercury are all, and Venus actually are all roughly the spin axis is roughly perpendicular to the plane of the system. got the one body out there, which is Uranus, which has got like an axis tilt of about 90 some degrees, right? So I mean that's an oddball. There's some weird explanation for that, right? But then you've got these four other major bodies, and Pluto they don't call a planet anymore, right? So you got the four major bodies, which is like Saturn, Neptune, Mars, and Earth, which all have this roughly 26-degree axis tilt. They've got axis tilts between about 24 and about 28 degrees, right? What does that tell? That says that they were captured as a group, right? That says that somewhere back beyond some period of time, it's like they're going to be sitting out there on their own, as a separate group, right? Now, what is it about being captured as a group which is going to give you the same axis tilt? The idea is that this whole system had formed up like as a Herbig-Haro string, like we described, right? You've got this Herbig-Haro string with, going from north to south. You've got Jupiter and its moons, right? Which probably included Mercury at some point. You've got Jupiter, then you've got the sun, and then furthest to the south, you've got this group of four bodies, which is like Saturn, Neptune, Mars, and Earth, right? Which is like a separate system, which is sitting out there by itself eventually, and it's an inline system. You've got other bodies in orbit around Saturn, but the four bodies I'm talking about were not an orbiting system, at least at first. It was an electromagnetically aligned system. It looks like a string of Christmas tree lights which has been pulled taut, or like a shish kebab with all the shishes lit up, right? That's what it looks like. So you've got this group of these four bodies which are in line, which fly into the plane of the Sun-Jupiter system from the south at something resembling a 26-degree angle. And as the individual bodies, until they're captured, right? So you got this final capture of the Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth system. And after this final capture, these individual bodies peel off and begin to orbit the way they do now, right? But when that happens, ordinary gyroscopic force causes them to retain this 26-degree angle of approach in the form of axis tilts, right? That's why you have these 26-degree axis tilts, and so if you go back to some kind of a point before all that happened, see, Troy McLaughlin believes that the sun approached Jupiter from the south to Jupiter, right? And that it slowed down as it did that, right? As the sun captured the Jupiter system, the sun slowed down, and the Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth system was able to approach and eventually be captured by the Sun-Jupiter system because of that slowing down. Now, prior to all that, you may have had a separation between this Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth group and the Sun and Jupiter. You may have had a separation as great as the distance between Proxima Centauri and the two main sequence stars, which are the main part of Alpha Centauri. Okay, so that you've got a lot of space separating these bodies. Now, when I talk about evolution, right, then the two things you want to consider. You want to consider evolution in general, and you want to consider, like, you want to consider human evolution, right? And originally you've got so much space between the Saturn, Mars, Neptune, Earth group, and the Sun and Jupiter, that for all intents and purposes, they may as well have been separated by 100 light years, okay? There's no way to believe that under those circumstances that anything ever got from Jupiter or Ganymede or Eos or anything like that, to Earth or to Mars. Now, the first human group that got to Earth, they were culturally sophisticated. They were not technologically sophisticated. Okay, they did not come here via spaceships. They came here via some kind of a haphazard event, which I believe was an electromagnetic water bridge, electrostatic water bridge. I'm sorry. It's like, this is the thing that you see, like in the little experiment that Donald Scott wants to talk about. And, that would be the way that you had these first humans transferring from Ganymede. So Ganymede and Earth would have been the two largest rocky bodies in the respective system. They would have been the two things that got close together. When you had a near approach, 40, 50, 60,000 years ago, you had a near approach before this final capture event. Now, the near approach, the bodies coming close, and then they separated again, right? The Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth system moved back into deep space, back into its own space role. I believe that what you have is a situation similar to bouncing a basketball on the floor, right? When you bounce a basketball on the floor, you get first like a big bounce, and then you get a bounce which is not so big, and then you get smaller and smaller bounces until the thing settles on the floor, right? You've seen that.
Yeah, we're listening.
We're listening.
Okay, so I haven't lost you yet. So this is what I believe happened. I believe that like you had a situation where the Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth system approached the Sun, Jupiter system, and then bounced away to a considerable distance, right? And then some thousands or tens of thousands of years went by. You may have had more than one of these bounces. You may have had more than two of these bounces, right? But you've got at least the one near approach when you had Cro-Magnon humans transferring to Earth. And then you've got that final capture event. So you got two that we know of. How you get humans on Earth. Now, as far as human evolution, what this says is, you've got these hominids, with the huge eyes, which are adapted to this dark cosmos where you've got a dwarf star, this deep purple kind of a situation, the Troy and Eduardo Cardona called the Purple Dawn, right? To where you've got this purple light radiating from the dwarf star, which is Saturn, and bouncing off the interior of this plasma heliosphere of Saturn's and back onto Mars and Earth from all directions, right? So there's enough radiant energy. You're not going to freeze to death, but the whole middle part of the light spectrum isn't there. And the creatures of those days, right, all have these same kinds of huge eyes. Dinosaurs all have these same huge eye sockets, right? The dinosaur remains, the hominids, Neanderthal, Homo erectus, various flavors of Homo erectus, all have these same kinds of huge eyes. The original inhabitants of Mars were also hominids, right, not humans. It's like you find skulls in these NASA JPL images, and they're typically hominid skulls. Okay, they have the huge eyes, and then they have the sloped foreheads, right? I mean, they're not human skulls. What I believe to be the case is that when humans came to Mars, at that point they were spacefaring. And I believe they would have had sophisticated weapons. They just killed off the hominids, right? Just left the bodies there to rot. You don't see skulls of humans on Mars, right? So, I mean, humans apparently were buried when they died. Difference, right? So there's no way to believe that humans are descended from hominids. In other words, the difference between humans and hominids is so great that the same planet cannot plausibly serve as a home world for both kinds of creatures. Now, the other question says that originally there was so much distance between, the Sun-Jupiter system and the Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth system, so there's no way to believe that before you had these near approaches, that anything ever got from point A to point B. And here's where you get into a problem with science fiction. There's a natural evolutionary bias to all science fiction, right? It's like you watch Star Wars and you see this cafe scene where you're seeing creatures whose morphology is limited only by the writer's imagination. You guys have seen that, right?
Yeah.
Got all these funky looking creatures with the one-eyed, one-horned, flying purple people eater type thing, right? And
it reminds me, I have a picture to show you later, Ted.
yeah, okay.
Go ahead.
But that's the natural evolutionary bias of, if you believe in evolution, you see, then you have to believe that any other living world that you ever found out there would be totally different from ours. Would probably have some totally different basis. It would involve creatures which wouldn't look like anything we'd ever seen at all, right? And that's not what we're actually seeing. Okay, what we're actually seeing out there is very much more like what a Christian would anticipate or some other religious person, right? In other words, there's so much, originally had so much distance between these two parts of the system. You've got this dark cosmos, which is centered around Saturn. Then you've got this bright cosmos, which is centered around the Sun and Jupiter, which was a dwarf star, was up much closer to the Sun at that time than it is now. And that's the normal situation for gas giant planets or dwarf stars in the galaxy, is that you expect to find. They call them hot Jupiters. You expect to find them up closer to the main sequence stars, than Jupiter or Saturn are now. At any rate, what does that say? What we're actually seeing is that between the Saturn-based system, with the Earth and Mars, and the Jupiter, the Sun-Jupiter system with Ganymede, at least we know at least one of these moons of Jupiter's was inhabited prior to, there's reasons for believing that. It's like this book of choice of mine goes into that, right? What is it about Ganymede? I mean, it would have been a freshwater ocean world. There's all kinds of water on Ganymede, right? They claim that there's like a 600-kilometer deep saltwater ocean on Ganymede, right? But there's no salt on Ganymede. There's no sodium, right? I mean, the actual indications are that you were dealing with a freshwater ocean world with both islands, anchored islands, and floating bergs and masses of pumice. Pumice floats, right? It's lighter than water, and abundant plant and fruit life. Like on these islands and bergs of pumice, right? So I mean, humans are living in a sort of a littoral existence, but we're aquatic mammals. I mean, humans are, the water creatures. At any rate, what I'm saying is that, like, aside from humans, between these two original parts of our solar system, the dark and the bright parts, you've got the same DNA, RNA information scheme behind both of them. You've got the same basic plan for large animals, right? You've got like a spinal column, a tail, 4 limbs, 2 eyes, 2 ears, two nostrils, right? And you've got the exact same kinds of creatures, right? There's every reason to believe that, like, humans and dolphins and at least some of the aquatic mammals that we have on Earth came from Ganymede, right? They would have transferred, via this water bridge event, right? But what does that tell you? That says that the whole picture that you get of the universe watching science fiction movies is wrong, right? That says that you're never going to see this cafe scene from Star Wars. No matter how far out you go, it's going to be highly unlikely that you're ever going to see anything other than creatures very similar to what we have on Earth now or have had in past ages. It's like you're going to see dinosaurs. You're going to see, depending on what kind of a world you're talking about, humans appear to be like an archetype, right? The apex creature for bright worlds, right? Hominids, like the Neanderthal, are the apex creature for dark worlds. And it may just be a question of the same basic animal, which has been, what's the word I want, configured differently for the one situation or the other.
Yeah, yep.
You guys still?
Yeah.
Oh,
You get a different configuration depending on the environment that you're in.
Yeah, okay, look, it's like in the software world, you've got a thing called Salesforce, which is the main piece of software that an awful lot of your Fortune 1000 corporations use for their customer relations management, right? It's like, it's a piece of software which handles what they call the sweet spot of the database market. The sweet spot being data which is highly organized, which is complex and highly organized, and where you have a high degree of interaction between users and data, right? Which is typically, customer relations management. And what they claim is, it's a valid claim, they claim that like 95% of everything you would ever want to create in the way of individual applications for a particular company can be done with configuration rather than programming. Okay, and that's the analogy, I mean, between that and sort of like the difference between, humans and hominids, right? But there's no relationship between humans and hominids. We're not descended from hominids, and we've never interbred with hominids. And those are stories in themselves, right? For any hominid, have you guys seen these pictures of Danny Vendramini's Neanderthal reconstructions? Greg, you've seen that.
No.
Right?
Yes, many times, yes.
Okay, Grouch, have you seen those?
You probably have.
Okay, if
Got
I
that
just...
little black screen in the middle there. Got that little black screen in the middle there, Ted. Pull it down the bottom there, Ted. Yeah.
And the word Neanderthal. The pictures they show in magazines and journal articles of Neanderthals are completely wrong also, right? They make make him look like just a slightly different human, right? I mean, this is not a slightly different human. This is what a Neanderthal actually looked like. Okay. I mean,
He's ugly.
yeah, the most major thing that jumps out at you are the eyes, right? I mean, he's got these huge eyes for seeing in this purple dawn world. You know, early human, the Neanderthal was basically a very advanced bipedal ape with dark world eyes. Okay, that is what you're talking about. Okay, the eyes and nasal areas are very much bigger than ours, and they're very much higher on the faces, right? I mean, you don't have anything we would call a forehead. And, you know, this is exactly what the bones actually indicate. Okay, now, early human needles are common, right? Nobody's ever found the first Neanderthal needle because, you know, a creature with a 6-inch fur coat doesn't require needles. You know, so that, you know, we're not. This is a different kind of an animal. This is the apex. This is the apex predator. You know, the apex creature of dark worlds, right? This is a creature which was able to use fire, was able to make spears and to bind spear points onto short little stout spears, right? But didn't have the kinds of shoulders you need for using a javelin or an atlatl or anything like that, right? It's like, so he's got himself some sort of a little short spear like Shaka Zulu would use. Did you ever watch that?
No.
You've seen Shaka Zulu, right?
No, probably have.
Okay, yep. It's a television series, right, about this great Zulu warlord, right, in the early 1800s, yeah. And he correctly figured that they weren't accomplishing anything with javelins. I mean, well, they had shields, right? And she said, okay, let's just come to close quarters and just have some kind of a short spear that you use for thrusting, right? And that's the kind of spear that the Neanderthal would be using. The Neanderthal was not inventive, right? An inventive creature would have very quickly invented wicker shields. You know, when he was faced with humans who did use javelins, did use atlatls. You see what I'm saying? First thing in the world that would come to my mind is like, gee, I need to make myself a shield, right? And then try to come to close quarters and take these guys on at close quarters. They never figured that out. You know, so they were intelligent.
So they were working on the premise that they could do everything with just brute force.
I'm sorry, run that by me again.
I said they were working on the premise of the Neanderthal that they could just do things with brute force, where humans, being smaller, had to be more agile and more protective.
Brute force can only accomplish so much in life, right? There was several things.
That's right.
Yeah, what happened
to the
Neanderthal? It's like humans happened to the Neanderthal. You know, I mean, they ended up having to compete for space with humans. And, you know, the humans eventually just declared war on them and wiped them out, right? But it's like the other thing that happened to the Neanderthal was like when you first started getting daylight on the Earth, that took half of the day away from them. See, in other words, they'd been able to operate 24/7, right? And it's like, you know, they couldn't anymore. So, you know, that also says that they couldn't be out in open areas anymore. It's like they had to restrict their movements to forested areas and dark, you know, places where their eyes.
It would have been too bright.
Yeah, we still have leftover creatures from that Purple Dawn age. We've got lemurs and tarsiers and, you know, and bush babies and owls and a few other kinds of things. And they're nocturnal creatures. They don't come out during the day very much. Did you ever see pictures of lemurs and tarsiers?
Oh, yeah, would have. Yeah,
I've seen them. Yeah, you got the big eyes. Yeah.
Yeah.
The bush babies. Yeah.
All right.
I had a band called Pygmy Bush Babies.
This is a tarsier, right?
It always reminds me.
Yeah,
of that.
yeah, no.
Yeah, that's one right there.
Yeah, that's a Purple Dawn animal, right? It's like the Neanderthal, same kind of thing, right? I mean, that's what Neanderthal eyes would have looked like. Dinosaurs, same thing. It's like every single one of them had those same kinds of eyes, you know, according to the eye sockets. Even herbivores, even the flying dinosaurs.
Mm-hmm.
And they have that front bone structure on skull too that we don't have.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, we
No, Neanderthal skulls are way different than ours.
Yeah, you get these brow ridges here. Sure.
Yeah.
You can see that, but you understand the thing that I wanted to get across, right, which is the question about evolution and the Ganymede hypothesis. I mean, the Ganymede hypothesis just kills whatever was left of the theory of evolution. For any hominid to have ever evolved into a human, he'd have to have lost everything he needed to live, right? He'd have to have lost his fur while ice ages were going on. He'd have to have lost almost all of his night vision when he was surrounded by predators he could see perfectly well in the dark, right? And he'd have to have lost almost all of his sense of smell, right? And that would be, you know, for a land prey animal, that would be fatal. I mean, and all that stuff together, you have no chance whatsoever. It's like, you know, a deer's sense of smell is like just several thousand times better than ours, right? I mean, predators can only approach deer from downwind, right? You know, wolf or any kind of a predator's got no chance of catching a deer or any sort of a deer-like animal from upwind, right? I mean, that's just never going to work. So it makes life hard for a predator, right? But I mean, you know, if deer had our sense of smell, they'd go extinct within 3 weeks. I mean, it'd just be an effortlessly free meal for every predator that ever laid eyes on them. Whereas for an aquatic mammal, a sense of smell is not terribly critical at all, right? So it gets back to this thing about humans originally being adapted for a bright freshwater ocean world. What do you need for a believable human home world, right? It's like you need 3 or 4 things. It's like a believable human home world would have to be warm because we don't have the fur coats, right? It would have to be bright because we don't have the huge eyes. It would have to be safe, you know, because humans don't swim anywhere near as efficiently as seals or dolphins do. It's like we would, you know, this theory of Elaine Morgan's that they call the aquatic ape theory could be looked at 2 ways. It's like you could look at it as a theory, as another flavor of evolutionism, in which case it's just another flavor of BS, right? Or you could look at it as a theory of human adaptation, in which case it's the best theory that's ever come down the road, but it's never gotten any traction in academia. There are 2 reasons for that, right? It's like, you know, there's no physical evidence of it on the Earth, and no fossil remains of an aquatic ape in the world, right? And that's one reason. The other reason is that there's never been a body of water on the Earth that would be safe for humans to live in on a full-time basis, right? You only need to spend 5 or 10 minutes in the ancient sea monsters section of a major museum to comprehend why humans don't live in water. You know, why humans weren't living in water 50 or 60,000 years ago here on Earth. Ganymede, I don't think ever had these sea monsters. I don't think there ever would have been sharks or anything like poisonous sea snakes or anything like that. You need 2 kinds of protection. Like you need protection from sea monsters. Either that or you need the sea monsters not to be there. And you need protection from cosmic radiation. And the thing which protects us from cosmic radiation is the intrinsic magnetosphere. And guess what? There's only 2 rocky bodies in our system that have intrinsic magnetospheres. Guess which the other one is? Ganymede. That's right.
Yeah.
The book goes into a lot of that, right? That was the part of the book that Trey McLaughlin wrote, right? It was the question of what made Ganymede such a perfect world for early humans. You get
the other thing too is that for us to live in water on this planet, even though we may have adapted our body temperature, but really water on this planet, as a rule, isn't warm enough for us to live in.
I believe humans could live in water. Yeah, I believe humans could live on water on this planet now. We have the technology to do it now. It's like we can make, you know, you've got half of the planet is like just water, right? More than half the planet is water, but you've got this half of the planet, which is the Pacific Void, right? Which is the part of the planet which is opposite Pico Island. I've mentioned Pico Island before, I believe, Greg.
Yeah.
Yes, you have.
Okay.
I agree.
You've got the Pacific Ocean. Is like I said, it's just it looks like half the globe, and it's just water, right? There's a few island groups, and there's a little part of Australia that hangs over into the Pacific Void, right? But that's it. And, I believe humans could take up residence and they could start to use that Pacific Ocean if we put our minds to it right. It's like you could start building vessels out of carbon fiber and it would be totally safe, right? It's like the safest thing that there is in the world, the safest place that you could possibly be in any kind of a, like a major earthquake or tidal wave or anything like that is a submarine, right? What I'm saying is you could build things submersible, but which were like maybe 1,000 feet long and, maybe 150 feet wide, and which had platforms, which would be like corrugated platforms, wouldn't have to be solid. The water would just pass through, right? But I mean, that would let you have all kinds of room on the surface of this thing for tennis or volleyball or whatever you wanted to do. And catching fish would be a natural kind of a thing, right? And I believe there's an opening in the world for somebody to become the Andrew Carnegie of carbon fiber, right? Or possibly graphene, right? And there's all kinds of potential, right? I believe if you did that, then the planet could support a much larger number of humans than it would support now. Okay, I've got on my little Steemit blog, and I don't know.
What I was meaning before though, Ted, is if the water on this planet now, you and I can't live in it. Even if you come up and breathing and all that, the water eventually it is too cold for our bodies. It takes too much warmth out of it.
Oh yeah.
I know it, dude, because that's when they had that punk thing going.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
I am the ruler of these nether worlds.
Oh shit.
What is that you were hearing?
No, that's Greg.
I thought I was muted and I was talking to my son.
Oh.
Yeah, no, that's right.
Sorry.
Yeah, so that's the thing.
I'll cut that
that's
out.
The thing on this planet. We couldn't live for a long period of time underwater.
No,
I'm
not talking about humans.
Because the water temperature. Yeah.
I'm not talking about humans.
Yeah, well, it's pretty cool.
Grouch, I'm not talking about humans living in water like as such. I'm talking about humans living on a very
underwater, no problem.
Yeah,
no, sorry about that.
Yeah. I'm talking about
could live on we could build structures.
Yeah, that's what I'm
we could build structures to live on it, no problem at all.
And these structures would be submersible, and they wouldn't have to go down 1,000 feet or anything like a U-boat, right? They would, they would only have to go down like 200 or 300 feet just to ride out storms. Yeah. That's all you would need, and that would be fairly easy to do. I've got my.
Ted, I want to ask you a question. It's kind of alternative research, but as a matter of fact, I can send you a picture in chat. Have you ever seen them amphibian beings that were discovered in a Russian lake? Have you ever heard about it?
No.
Oh, well, I'll send you a picture in chat. I sent you another one, too, of something that was photographed on Mars. And you tell me what you think it is, because I know what it looks like to me. It's in chat already. I'll put the other picture.
Let me break out of that thing and then get.
Just wanted you to see that supposedly they discovered some amphibian beings in a Russian lake. I got to upload that picture still. It's coming.
For some stupid reason. Let me get back. Let me stop sharing my screen.
No, keep sharing it. What you're doing is good. We see it. We see it on the show.
Okay.
You could do that, yeah. Because we're looking at your screen and just show the pictures that I just sent you.
Yeah, I want to get together with you and Ramon.
Oh, good, yeah. That would be awesome. I would love to get together with you and Ramon together.
See if I could disabuse him of the idea of humans being on Earth for 200,000 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
50,000 years. That's not believable. It's like those first humans that came to Earth like 30, 40, 50,000 years ago at the most.
Mm-hmm.
He's assuming that he's counting hominids as early humans, right? And that's completely wrong.
Ted, can you tell me? Can you look at that picture so we can? Then you can go there if you want.
Run this by me again. The picture is
in chat. You had it up for a second there. I want you to take a look at that and see what. I don't know if you've heard of the story or not, but apparently some Russian divers discovered this new species of amphibian living in this Russian lake.
I'm
I don't
getting
know if
back.
it's true or if it's fake, or you got to go to chat.
Chat.
Yeah, you got to go to chat. In chat, there's usually it just says it's a white circle on the bottom. It
Your
says chat.
screen mightn't be out wide enough. Ted, your screen's probably not big enough for it to show up. Stretch your screen across of your Skype screen, and you'll find it. You got to stretch your screen across. No, you got to stretch it.
Yeah, grab it on the edge and stretch it, make it big.
I'm not having an easy time getting back to.
So down either one of the bottom corners. Yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Now you've got.
Now you
got it
see
down
chat
there.
right here. No, first one on
Ah,
yes.
That's it.
And you'll see the little
That's it.
being go down. You should go down to the picture. There's the picture from Mars. It's a 65-foot tall statue of a cat given the peace sign.
Give me a second.
Is that crazy or what?
Uh,
That was
cer-
photographed on Mars.
Okay, I don't know what that is, but it's certainly not a natural formation.
No.
This looks like a dog or something, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, there's all kinds of stuff there. There's a face, a profile next to him. It's weird,
yeah.
man. And it looks like it has a little cutout cavern.
Let me run something by you. It's like
Oh, just look at the amphibian first, and then you can do that. Look, I want to get your opinion on the amphibian. That's more important. Well, actually, that's pretty crazy. But yeah, go to the next one.
Oh,
Boom. One more. Yes.
about the amphibian.
Is that you think that's real, or do you think that's fake?
You have no idea, Greg. Like, I don't like to talk about things which I don't have a handle on, right? It's like which I don't have anything intelligent to say.
I understand that. Yeah,
I mean,
that
if
makes
you
sense.
have something intelligent to say, there's always this option of keeping your mouth, of just staying silent, right?
Well, if you ever delve into it, let me know if you get an informed opinion.
The Russians are into all kinds of funky things, right?
I know. Yeah, you got that right. They definitely do their own thing.
Right.
They don't march to the drums of the West.
No, but I mean, Russia to me is like a terribly interesting kind of a place. They've become sort of the capital of the Christian world lately. I don't know if you've seen the pictures of these two giant new cathedrals.
Oh, really?
Have you seen that?
No, I have not.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah.
So what are they? Very orthodox? They're
Have you
very
guys seen, are you guys seeing my screen still?
Yes, indeed.
Yeah.
Let's go to Russia for a minute.
Their religion is very orthodox. I mean, they go through the whole rhythm.
The word they use is pravoslavny. Okay, pravoslavnaya cerkev. It'd be like an Orthodox church, right?
You see that getup that priest wears that went to the South Pole? How that man putting all that shit on every day? Jeez.
That would be, yeah. If we go to Google, right, and if I switch my character set to Russian here, RU, see the RU down here now? You just have to know what keys are on a normal typewriter, right? So, Cathedral Hram, is that an R? No, still. Hram Hristos Spasitelya, the Cathedral of Christ the Savior. See this here?
Mm-hmm.
And let me look at some images here first. This is a colossally big structure, right? This was
Oh, Jesus.
these doors are 50 feet high, okay? I mean, you don't.
Wow.
You
Man,
can't.
they must have had some kind of money to get lavished like that. Is that in Moscow?
This is in the outskirts of Moscow, yeah. Actually, this is not on the outskirts. This is in Moscow. This is on the same location where the cathedral was in the 1800s, right? The communists tore that cathedral down and made it into a swimming pool complex. But under Putin, the cathedral has been rebuilt. And I mean, this is splendid beyond words.
It looks like a modern, what's that place? Baalbek. I mean, it looks giant like that. You ever seen that?
They built heaps of
Them
them.
buildings in Baalbek, how
They built.
gigantic they are compared to everything else?
I'm not seeing any pictures of the interior of the thing here. It's like you can get some sort of an idea here, but
Yeah, it's pretty lavish.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Old world lavish.
See,
Look at that.
they've rebuilt.
Click that.
They've rebuilt whole areas, Ted.
Yeah. Let me.
They've been very busy. They've
Well,
been
guys,
very
What do
busy
they
the
do?
last
Line the
10,
floor
15
with
years.
gold?
let me let you guys watch a little
No.
bit of here.
Oh man, I ain't no religion, man.
Yeah. Let me.
You're not gonna try to get it saved or nothing, are you?
Yeah, let me try to do
Sinners, repent.
This is amazing, you know, when you look at it. This goes right back to the Eastern Church, Constantinople, the Roman emperors, the whole lot, Ted.
Constantinople, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, this goes back to all that.
Did you ever hear what Calvin Coolidge said about sin?
No.
Yeah, it's funny because Christians tend to obsess over sin, right? Sin to me is like a failure of moral strength. Okay, it's like it's unavoidable. It's something you should try to avoid, right? It's not a good thing, right? But it's
Right,
it's
right.
not completely avoidable. It's like
It's a weakness.
okay, the flood was caused by a dwarf star flare event. Okay, the flood, I'll give God credit for being bright enough not to wipe the whole solar system over sin, only to have sin back in business 40 years later as if nothing had happened. You understand the problem with that, right? Now, the story, Calvin Coolidge was a man of few words. I mean, a strong silent type. I had a reporter once said, pardon me, Mr. President, says I've got like $100 on the line here. I've got a friend of mine, I could get you to say 3 words. He said, you lose.
Mhm.
And then like he went to church one day and his wife was sick and couldn't, had a cold or something, couldn't make it. She came home from church. His wife said, what was, I said, how'd it go? I said, what was the sermon about, dear? He said, sin. He said, what did Parson Brown have to say about it? He was against it. Let me see if I can find something that shows you a little bit more of this cathedral that I'm talking about. Ram Hista Specitlia, right? And let's see if this will show you a little bit more of the interior of this thing. I'm not going to play this whole thing.
They've been building those dome structures over there for a long, long time, though, Ted.
Yeah, the domes of the Kremlin.
Mm. They must be able to handle all the cold weather extremes.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
wouldn't be able to build them in the West anymore, Greg.
Yeah.
Ted, we can't build buildings like that anymore.
I don't know.
We can't build grandiose buildings anymore.
Well, look,
We're not allowed to.
Look, you guys probably are looking.
Hey, are we done with the Ganymede theory then?
Pretty much, yeah. That was the thing I
Okay.
wanted to talk about. It was
Well,
the
I can get a video.
That's the calico cat. She's got another cat at the window that she likes to growl at.
You're the cat.
Yeah, well, the calico cat is weird.
I just have one cat. That's all I can have.
Yeah, calico cat, quit that. Get away from the window. Bigger than that, and that's the military cathedral.
Oh,
Yeah,
they must be losing their minds over there, building gigantic buildings.
I don't know. Like, if you really want to see gigantic buildings, like get on YouTube and type in Chinese engineering project.
How about Baalbek? You ever seen that? Jeez, the pillars are huge.
They've got
for giants.
Yeah, they've
City.
got column stone, which, have you seen that picture of that column stone, which is like 20 feet by 20 feet or 25 feet by 20 feet, whatever it is, and 100 feet long?
Which one is that?
that huge column stone that
At
nobody's ever.
Baalbek?
Yeah.
Yeah, but have you ever seen the city?
Yeah.
That's the beams are one thing, but there's a city there that
Yeah.
dwarfs anything the Romans did.
Oh yeah.
They don't even know who built it.
He's showing off, Greg. He's showing off.
You got this one.
What did you say, Andy? I didn't hear you.
I said Ted's showing off of his
He's show-
language skills.
Oh, he's showing off.
What he's typing. What he's typing.
I'm
I
sorry. I
I
still
didn't.
have,
I didn't catch that.
No. It's all right, Ted. That's all right, Ted.
switch discussion. It's like
Sometimes it be like that.
you know, I still have the keyboard switch. That's,
Yeah.
there's the one column. This picture's not coming up right now, but there's one column which is so huge that the Army Corps of Engineers and Bechtel have both said that like there's no modern technology that can move the thing a single inch. Okay. So the question is, how did the people in ancient times figure to move that thing? And the answer is, part of the answer is that gravity was heavily attenuated in that age, right? It wasn't as heavy then as it would be now. I still don't see a picture. I would have thought that would come stone, maybe. It's a single stone. It's a single item right here, maybe. No, that's not the here. This is the one I'm thinking of. You see, you got people standing on the thing. You get an idea of how humongous this is, right? It's halfway sunk into the ground. You guys see this?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can see the people standing on top of it. You know, the Army Corps of Engineers has said that there's no modern technology that can move that thing. They said you could take everything that the military has with engines and treads and you know, and you could chain all of it to that thing. It wouldn't be able to move it.
Yeah, maybe would it be?
Right. And they don't know what.
How heavy would that be?
They don't know
What would its weight be?
I'm sorry.
That they could work. Yeah, what would its weight be? How heavy? How far down in the ground does it go?
I can't remember, but it's pretty substantial. They're pretty substantial.
Yeah, and how far down in how far down in the ground does it continue?
Yeah, I don't know.
We don't know.
Ground.
Because I reckon you could dig it out and put rollers under it and get it going.
No, you couldn't move something like that. Yeah, rollers.
Yeah, dig it out, put rollers under it.
Rollers would just sink into the ground. Rollers would just sink into the ground. It's like a combination, I think, probably of, you know, just the attenuated gravity of ancient times, as well as the kind of thing that I mentioned in my little web page write-up on Mars. You know, like, you know, the idea of Biefeld-Brown propulsion and electrogravitics, you know, defeating the purpose of gravity.
Yep.
So that kind of technology, it's like you would have to do something about gravity in order to move the stone. At any rate, that's Baalbek, right? No, I don't think anybody knows, you know, like when exactly Baalbek was created, what it was for. Just one of life's mysteries, right? The most interesting thing in the ancient world, to my way of thinking, is this underground city out there, like in Anatolia, right? What is that called? I mean, they've got a city which is like entirely underground, which apparently would be adequate for 20 or 30,000 people to live in. It's called Darren Kuyu. Have you ever seen pictures of that, Greg?
Hey, Greg.
Yes, I'm listening. I'm just muted.
Have you
Yes.
ever seen pictures of
Yeah.
Darren?
No, I don't believe I have. Yeah, show me.
I don't know. I don't know how close I'm going to come to getting the spelling right.
Oh, Google should help you.
That's not getting it.
No. Yeah,
Underground.
the Greeks used to live there, wasn't it?
I'm sorry?
Wasn't it
Yes.
Greek descendants that were living in there? And gradually over the last 30 years, they've all got rid of them because the last of them were relatively Christian based. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, here they've got an article which is saying that the thing is like 5,000 years old. I don't quite believe that. They don't have any way of telling how old this thing was. Or let me try. Let me try my original idea for spelling the thing. It's like it's not turning up the pictures that I'm used to seeing. Okay, at any rate, you've got a city underneath the ground which could support large numbers of people. Now, why would they build something like that? There was a tremendous amount of effort went into that. I believe that was like a shelter from the ice ages. Okay, it's like it would not work as a shelter from human adversaries. Okay, it's like somebody like like Subadai or Bati would just pour naphtha down the breathing holes and light a match, right? Darren Kuyu here, Underground City Visitor Guide.
There's another place like that in Ireland.
I can believe that. You've got a network of tunnels underneath Europe, which goes all
I
over the
think
place.
people must have been living underground for some time.
Yeah, that would have probably been
Mhm.
during the Ice Age. That
Yeah,
would have
or
been a major way of dealing with the Ice Ages.
the cataclysm,
Yeah,
the Venus cataclysm. Because Venus caused one hell of cataclysm here.
yeah, that's correct. But I don't know if they had enough time to build something like Darren Kuyu, like to deal with Venus, right? If I
Yeah,
had to,
that's something you'd think that they were preparing for a long time. Yeah.
yeah, that could easily be.
Well,
Okay, I mean,
what do you think of Velikovsky's 52-year thing, where it
uh,
came back every 52 years?
I believe it's pretty. I think Velikovsky is one of the really great modern scholars, right? I mean, he's like the most careful
Absolutely.
scholar. How these guys at the Thunderbolts think that they're going to second guess Velikovsky, and try to claim that Venus was originated with Saturn rather than Jupiter. I mean, that makes no sense to me. Okay, I mean, Velikovsky was as good as it gets, right? I mean, this was old school scholarship. I mean,
He's a dot connector, man. He just deals in facts.
right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I wouldn't. There's no way in the world I would try to second guess Velikovsky, especially on something which he claimed that he put as much thought into as the question of Venus being fissioned off from Jupiter. Right? They've got the exact same axis tilt, like about 3 degrees, right? Within less than half a degree, they've got the exact same axis tilt, which is almost dead perpendicular to the plane of the system, right? And then you've got this retrograde spin, which is what is predicted by the idea of Venus being ejected from the equatorial region of Jupiter. Okay, now if you think gears, right? I mean, when you have two gears meshing, one gear turns one way, the other turns the other way, right? It's like if you have Venus being ejected from the equatorial region of Jupiter, then yeah, it's going to spin the wrong way. I mean, just the material catching as it was blasted out.
Well, Saturn's rings, to me, indicate a massive expulsion event. Do
Yeah,
you agree?
yeah. Well, I mean, the waters of the flood are most likely from Saturn.
Mm-hmm. The salt.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Velikovsky said that the waters of the flood were salty. He said that the oceans on Earth were not salty prior to the flood.
Right. Mm-hmm.
He said there's no source for the salt.
No, that's right. The rocks can't give off that much that's needed for the oceans to be like they are.
Yeah, they said there's no one place in the oceans where all the salt comes from, right? It's like
Right.
it's
There seems to have been a massive dump at the Dead Sea, though. I mean, there's piles of salt there.
Yeah, I believe.
Yeah, but Greg, what happens in the ocean is too, where it gets a lot of organic matter or pollution, the salt content increases to it, and then when it breaks it down, so you may find that area around that area
it's like a living
may have.
thing.
Yes.
It's like a biological thing.
Yes.
And we're killing our oceans, aren't we?
We're not doing any good. It's like we dump a lot of pollution in the ocean. You need to clean the oceans up. It's like we need to occupy the oceans. It's like you need to get humans out there living in the Pacific areas, which I believe you could do, right? I believe you could create like islands that humans, floating islands that humans could live on, right? Out there.
Lloyd Pye said something that it's hard for me to imagine, but maybe it's true. He said that at least 25% of the United States has never been explored because it's just too hard to go back there or go in there.
Probably correct. And Lloyd Pye said that like humans are living in like about 25 or 30% of the land area of the Earth. He said that like you have leftover. He believed you had like Bigfoot, and the living in the 60% of the land area of the Earth, which is seen only from the air. Pure flyover country, right?
Yeah.
That's I regard that as possible. If anything, that would be like a distant cousin of the Neanderthal. It wouldn't be Neanderthals per se, right? But it would have the same problem with communications that the Neanderthal would have. You see, you had creatures, you had this telepathic, of all the videos that the two of us have done together, Greg, that's the one that I like the best. That's the neatest of all of them.
Breaking up, Ted.
I'm sorry. I was back too far.
Everything you just said, but didn't get recorded.
Is this better? Can you hear me a little?
Poor connection. Yeah, a little bit. It says we have a poor connection again. Well, just keep talking. I can hear you now.
I'm still there, I think.
Okay, let me get my face up as close as I can to the speaker on this computer.
Yeah, there you go. That's better. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that was real good what you were saying, though. Keep going.
Refresh my memory. I'm sorry.
I know.
Yeah, it's old age. You had a long day. You had a long day before.
I had 2 hours sleep. Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm okay.
No.
All right, let's go back to where we were with Ganymede theory. So, what you're saying, basically, in essence, if I may, is that the Saturn system was containing Earth, but Ganymede was in the Jupiter system, which was in the brighter part of the solar system, so that we had constant heat, safe atmosphere, and we were sort of marine humans living on pumice.
Right.
Did we have
And
houses?
fresh water.
I don't know if we would have had, if you would have had houses, right? It's like you might have. Um,
Or is it like a typical like Greek scene where everyone's laying around eating grapes?
no, you would have had fruit. Look, it's like
Yeah.
humans, the original human diet would have been some combination of fish and shellfish and fruit, right? And especially, since humans do not swim as efficiently as seals or dolphins do, we use up a lot more energy swimming than the other aquatic mammals do. So the fuel for all of that expenditure of energy was coming from fruit, right? That's why you have this human taste for sweet things. Okay, and that's the
Hey,
problem.
did you notice that NASA, um, somewhat suspiciously to me, seems to go out of their way to avoid Ganymede at all costs? They don't
Um,
really spend a lot of time with it.
you've got people claiming that you've got cities and other infrastructure on Ganymede, right? I mean, you can see that from the pictures. It's like, give me a second.
I think your theory is very believable. I mean, I can see it, you know.
Yeah,
It's
let me see if I can find a copy of the new version of the books.
So the transfer earlier on, you were saying the transfer was possibly a water transfer. But then when we had that chat a while back, you talked about light. Is it possible you could have had it through light?
And what now?
So earlier on, the transfer of humans from Ganymede to Earth was a water transfer. We transferred via water.
That's
But
correct.
is it also possible that you could have transfer through light,
No,
light, water, something?
no. The transfer would have been through water. It would have been like an electrostatic water bridge, like you see in the experiments.
spaceship.
Have you guys seen? I've shown you that little thing where we've got the water bridge and the two beakers, right? Water.
Yes, we've seen that. Yes.
It's the same
Yeah.
thing, just on a larger scale.
Yeah.
Uh,
What about that story though about the giants crashing to Earth on their machines, and some of them survived and some of them didn't? There were 200 men. Now, what's that all about?
there,
Velikovsky talks about it.
there may have been other human saltations on Earth. Okay, you've got two that we know about. You've got this original group of humans coming from Ganymede to Earth. Probably back there, more than 10,000 years ago, probably more like 20, 30, 40, 50, 60,000 years ago, but no more than that. Okay. And there's no real way to tell how much time was involved in that. We've got three places that we know were inhabited in past ages. You've got the Earth, Mars, and Ganymede, right? You may have had humans transferring to Earth from Mars, and possibly from one or two other places as well. That makes some of the racial differences that we see, right? It's like, I don't know if you've noticed, but like the people that you see, the indigenous people that you see in those NASA JPL images are Caucasians. Okay. Whereas the first humans that came to Earth would have been dark skinned, right? You don't expect, you've got like John Cook had claimed that he'd done the calculations that showed, Jupiter like at 0.7 AU early on, right? And you're getting like light both from or radiant energy both from the sun and from the dwarf star. You don't expect people living like that to be light skinned. Okay. The reasons to believe that Cro-Magnon people on the Earth, both in Europe and in places like Australia, were dark-skinned, at least originally. But the conclusion I come to is that, like it's probably the case that every single human on Earth carries in his genetic structure the information needed for every kind of human that there is, every racial group, every subspecies
Yep.
that you get, right? But you know, there's no crossover between hominids and humans, right? There's no reason to believe that humans and hominids were ever interbreeding, right? They make that claim. I've got like a video on my own little Ganymede hypothesis channel on YouTube, which talks about the Neander scam, right? Which is these people that want to have you send in a DNA swab, and they're going to send you out a computer reading, you know, for a reasonable fee, of course, you know, like of your percentage of DNA, right? So you get, like, aside from the people at Max Planck Institute, you get gang members wanting to do this, right? So you can tell everybody how bad they are, right? You know, because, well, gee, man, so I'm like 2.753% Neanderthal. Nobody better mess with me, right? That's just plain stupid. Downloads. Where? Bear users, bear name. Okay. Try this again. Why my document not?
Good to know, Greg. We're not the only ones that go hunting for files and things, is it?
Yeah, oh yeah, we specialize in that. Hey, we got a lot of material already. You know, it's pretty good. So, you know, just carry on if you wish. But we're gonna make them pithy. I want to keep them under 90 minutes.
Right.
The 3-hour thing isn't working too good. I need a new plan.
I figure that, you know, most people's threshold of pain for like watching videos
Right,
about
right.
30 minutes.
You know, if it's a live stream, I'm gonna have like a certain thing. Live streams can go as long as we want. But when I do an upload, it's only going to be 20 or 30 minutes, max.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I don't see the new version of the book here. That's
The
like
live stream last Saturday/Sunday went very well. And now next week we're showing you.
Let me ask another question. This friend of yours, Ramon, is Shifu his first name, or is that a title or something?
That's
What is
the title, yeah. That's the
No,
title.
what does that mean?
Like a dojo master.
Like
Like
sensei.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
I'll look it up, the actual definition.
Where's he from?
Kentucky.
Okay, so it's
Born
like
and raised. Yeah. He's in the
Uh,
Kentucky Historical
look,
Society.
Ted, you'd have a really good talk to him. You
Yes.
know, once
Oh,
you got
yes.
to know him. Once you got to know him a bit, Ted, there's so many things that you actually have in
Oh, yes.
common interest.
You're both
You
intellectuals.
know, like if we're
Yeah.
out at Freeway with both you and Ramon, and Ramon talking about different things around Kentucky and that,
right.
I think you'd really enjoy it. You know?
I'm
There's
putting
different things he says to Greg and I, and we go, oh, Ted and him are on the same
Yeah,
page.
Ted was talking about the same thing. I got the meaning for
Yeah.
Shifu and I put it in chat. Simplified Chinese or traditional.
Right.
It means in Mandarin or Sifu in Cantonese is a title for and the role of a skilled person or master.
Right.
He likes all things Eastern. He's into the East big time. You guys would have a lot to talk about. You'd have a lot in common, like Andy says.
No, that sounds like it would be interesting. It's
You
like,
could feed off of each other because you both get doing the
It
same
would be
thing.
said, once you got to know each other and that, you go really well.
Mm-hmm.
You just feed it through and just go, oh, we've got Ted and Ramon. We'll just go bang straight live.
Yeah, the subscribers love you both.
right. Now, like I said, I mean, some of the, I heard a few things that bothered me a little bit, you know.
Yeah, you're not going to please everybody.
Yeah, I know.
If I see them, I usually get rid of them. I must not have seen it because I haven't seen anything bad come through.
Well, just the idea of claiming that humans have been on the Earth for 200 or 300,000 years,
Oh,
right?
well, I mean, that's just maybe you can enlighten him. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm
So
sure I could.
he's
It may end
open.
up
He's
being
open
something
minded.
whereby you both agree to agree. It may end up being something, Ted, where you both agree to disagree.
Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Right. Yeah.
I'd say one thing that the Ganymede hypothesis is very compatible with is the out of Australia theory.
Out of
You
Australia.
get people, you get people claiming that, and you've got like an out of Australia theory group on Facebook, right? And you get people claiming that like there's reason to believe that the first humans on Earth were coming from Australia, not Africa.
I've heard that before.
Okay. Now this gets into a funny kind of a thing, which says that I believe that hey,
Australia used to be
Give me a
Lemuria.
damn stupid cat. Give me a second. I'm sorry. Stop that. Priscus, you get away from that window. Go on, cat.
How many cats do you have, Ted?
At least one too many.
too many.
Hang on.
You're gonna turn into the cat lady with
Yeah.
30 cats living in your house.
Wait a minute, stupid idiot. Here, you want to go out?
Oh, that's terrible.
Here.
Man,
Shoot.
I don't know what to think about it.
Okay, cat's outside.
Reminds me of something, bad memory.
That might work better.
That's right.
That might work. That might work.
Ted, you there?
I'm sorry?
Ted, you there? You there? Look
Yeah,
at my
I'm
screen.
here.
Up top. What do you see?
Yeah, I just heaved the cat. The cat's outdoors now, so.
It's a dog. It's a little
Yeah.
rat. A little rat dog.
And this is it. Yeah, it's a little chihuahua.
You could get a hamburger out of that. A nice big juicy hamburger.
No, we're not going to cook the cat. She's right back there.
She's a lovely little dog.
He just
She's a lovely little dog.
skedaddled around the house, made it right back in through the cat door. You can't win. Yeah, the cat door for the cats, right? I mean, when we had this polar vortex this last winter, I had 5 or 6 cats staying here. Because they all would have frozen to death, right? It's like I had like Priscus, which is the black and copper colored calico cat. And then I had like Oscar, which was sort of like that's the bully cat, right? I mean, that's the one that kills things for food. And then I had like Boo Boo, and then that cousin of Boo Boo's, and then
You have a shopping cart?
I'm sorry?
You have a shopping cart?
No, not
No,
for
I'm
cats.
just kidding, man. Because
Not-
every once in a while I see some old dude pushing a shopping cart around.
Yeah, not for cats.
Or I saw a guy taking his bird. He took his bird
That
for a
was Lucille
walk.
Ball who did that movie, wasn't it, Greg?
What?
That was Lucille Ball who did that movie, wasn't it? Didn't Lucille
Yeah.
Ball
Yeah.
do a movie where she pushed the cart around the cats and that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a guy,
Bruce.
picture of a guy, he took his bird for a walk.
Oh, that's crazy. The cats all survived. And the other thing that seems to be coming back now is my orange tree, right? It was like that polar vortex killed all the orange trees.
Oh, you got an orange tree?
That was my pride and joy. I mean, I kept
Oh.
the tree alive through every kind of thing for like 9 years, right? And I mean, and it was like it had gotten to be like about 12 feet tall, right?
I had a ficus tree die on me like that. I had it for 25 years.
Yeah, and I mean, this is like Joe Biden and lunatics screwing with the weather.
And
I
with
mean-
my mom's too.
There's nothing natural about that polar vortex. You got like, you
Yeah,
had,
what's the deal with that? That's going on right now on top of Earth?
I don't know, but it's like you've got anecdotal evidence of a very big increase in chemtrail activity since Biden took office, right? I mean, that had stopped under Donald Trump.
Now, I've heard a few stories on the chemtrails. Now, someone says the chemtrails are so that we can be protected from cosmic rays. And then
No.
then I've heard that they're lethal. Which one is which?
Look, there's no rational reason to be doing that kind of shit in the wintertime, in the dead of winter. Okay,
I
summer,
heard they're trying to keep the earth cool.
yeah, summer. Well, I mean, it sure kept it cool, man. It was like 10 degrees down here in South Texas. Let me tell you how capable South Texas is of dealing with that kind of weather. I mean, that's
Not at
just
all. You guys probably
no.
don't even have salt trucks.
Oh no, salt truck? You got to be kidding! Nobody would even know what that was down here.
Yeah.
And they don't have rusty cars, Greg.
Yeah, that's right. In the north,
Right.
where there's salt trucks, you see
Yeah.
rusty cars. In the south, you never see rusty cars.
Well, yeah, you do. It's like you get
Well,
cars.
if they're from the north.
You get cars from the Houston area which get water logs, and then they, just the salt water that you get coming off the bay and everything. I mean, cars get rusty.
And I have a good friend that lives in
Yeah.
Houston. He loves it. Man, it looks like it's way too hot for me. But
I
I'll tell you what, I don't want to go through another winter. I really don't.
you know, you don't see me living in Houston. It's like Houston is too low. It's too many ways it gets hurt by water. So Victoria is like 90 feet of elevation, pretty much uniformly. It's like, water just rolls off of Victoria. There were several things that I liked about Victoria. It's not like I just threw a dart and it landed in Victoria, right? I mean, I've been shopping on YouTube for a town, or on Google Earth for a town for a couple of years before I retired, right?
I'm surrounded by water.
Yeah, Victoria's got, you've got ducks and fish 40 miles away, but you've still got 90 feet of elevation, right? So, there's no kind of water event could reach Victoria. It could be hurt by wind a little bit, but, like the giant hurricane that we had like 3 years ago. But,
I'm trying to imagine the time when Venus came close to Earth and Earth stopped in its rotation. That would mean that the oceans would stop and probably come back at a full ocean tsunami.
well, that's what Velikovsky said. He said it was just nobody's idea of fun, right? It's like you've got Isaiah chapter 14, I believe, which says, how art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning. In other words, you got something used to come to the top of the sky that doesn't come to the sky anymore. That's what that means, right? It's like,
the Indians saw light coming over the fire, and it was water.
How art thou brought down to the ground, which didst weaken the nations and destroy the cities of the earth? Well, I mean, that's the story of worlds in collision, right? I mean, that nailed dead solid.
Dead solid.
The guy was 100% right. It's like, Venus really is a new planet. When they discovered the conditions on the surface of Venus, the 850-degree Fahrenheit surface temperature, there should have been a line of scientists, a couple of miles long, lined up outside of Velikovsky's door to apologize, right? And it didn't happen at all. You've got like this Carl Sagan, right?
Right.
Immediately fabricating this bullshit super greenhouse theory of his, which is a theory, right? I mean, the whole purpose of this super greenhouse theory of Sagan's was to prevent Velikovsky from getting any credit for this correct prediction.
Yeah.
They go on with that, right? I mean, they go on with that, and it's just idiotic. I mean, there's no sunlight getting to the surface of Venus. I mean, the descender probes saw pitch black in the middle cloud layers, and then they saw light becoming brighter as you got to the surface. It says that the light that you see on the surface is locally generated. Okay, it's created by near constant electrical discharge and activity, by chemical, combination of that and chemicals in the atmosphere.
It's incandescent.
Yeah. Okay, I believe that we could terraform Venus. I don't like the idea of wanting to settle or terraform Mars. Mars, the whole planet is an archaeological site. You don't try to terraform archaeological sites, make condos out of them, right? That's like, Mars could tell us an awful lot, right? It's like, what do these people know that we don't know, right? I mean, do they have better records than we have of the catastrophes? You've got that one of the two moons.
I've wondered that too.
You've got one of the two moons, Phobos, right? Which is obviously it's an artificial structure. It's an ancient space station, like about 15 miles across. So they're building on a scale vastly beyond anything. We don't build things on a scale like that.
The man who wrote Gulliver's Travels named both of Mars' moons and their orbital period in the 1700s.
Yeah. So he was getting the information from somewhere. Yeah, I know.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you what I believe to be the case with Phobos. Okay, Phobos is, Richard Hoagland said you could almost count the rivets. That's before he even had the good color images. You've seen the color images, right? Those high-rise images, which
we should be showing them. You should be showing them. Yeah, why don't you go and show some images so I don't have to.
That's not difficult to do. Are you still on my screen?
Yep.
Okay, if I say Phobos. Rise images from the University of Arizona, I believe. And if I go to image search, then this is Phobos, right? And you can see real moons are supposed to be made out of dirt and rocks and green cheese, right? They're not supposed to reflect light all over creation like a mirror. And yet this is what Phobos looks like. I mean, that's just like a mirror surface. And like Richard Hoagland said, you can all but count the rivets, right?
It looks like metal. Yeah.
Those are metal strakes, okay? Now, the Russians claim that their penetrating radar was seeing like interior, like rectangular spaces in the interior of the thing, open spaces. And what would the purpose of something like that be? I believe that this had to have been somehow or other associated with an attempt to get off of the system. You see, the people living on Mars and Ganymede, before the day of the shit hits the fan, right? I mean, you've got this day, before the final capture of the southern part of the system, Saturn, Neptune, Mars, Earth, right? Would have had no way of knowing if anything in the system was going to remain habitable. So they would have tried to do two things. They would have, number one, tried to bring people and animals from other settled bodies within our system to Earth, where they figured they would have the greatest chance of survival, right? Earth being the largest rocky body in the system. Now, that also says that it's probably the case that Saturn was bigger than Jupiter before all of that stuff happened, right? Yeah. The other thing that they would have, like I said, they would have tried to get people and animals to Earth, and then the other thing they would have tried to do would be to devise some kind of a general escape from the system, okay? And I believe that the Phobos is probably related to that attempt at a general escape. It was either some sort of a tool shed or something where they kept the tools and had something to do with the vehicle. In other words, I think there may be somewhere out there half a light year away or some starting from our system going outwards, there may be some kind of a body of some sort which is substantially bigger than this, which would be this, the people that got out of the system to try to survive.
Did you know that they discovered a planet that's larger than Jupiter, way past Pluto?
No, I've never heard that.
Yeah, they did.
It would be easier to see if they had. Okay, and
it's orbiting way out there. It's orbiting so far from the sun, they can't believe that it's still in the sun's crypt.
If you have a link to that, I'd like to see it.
I'll get it. I'll get it for you. I was going to do a show on it. I just tripped up on it not long ago.
Right. if we were to try to build something like Phobos, we couldn't do it, right? It's like all the talent on Earth wouldn't suffice. If you built it on Earth, you'd never get it up off the Earth. Built it in space, well, you'd need an army of construction workers. And how would you do that, right? It's like you would need an army of construction workers. And what would you do for one of them had to use the restroom? What do? Right? Do you have like Johnny on the spots, like out there in space, times 50 million? You know, I mean, there's no reasonable way. There's no reasonable way to have 50 million guys working on something like this in space, right?
Androids.
Or you're saying robots, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Let me tell you what I think they did. You know, have you ever heard the term like Kardashev, like class 1, class 2, class 3 civilizations?
Yes, I've heard about that before.
Okay, like a class 1 civilization, if memory serves, would be a civilization which had the capability of utilizing all of the energy which reached their own planet. Okay, like your ultimate civilization would be a civilization which had the power to utilize all the energy from their own star. Okay, whereas what I believe to be the case is that like the people living on Mars had probably mastered the art of controlling the process by which a dwarf star like Saturn would fission off some other sort of a body to relieve electrical stress, you know, the way that Venus was fissioned off of Jupiter, right? So I believe that they probably caused Phobos to be fissioned off from Saturn, right? And then just got up there and somehow or other hammered it. So you've got the space between Mars and Saturn, between Mars and Neptune, right? And like, you know, that would be the best place from which to launch this thing that I'm talking about. In other words, this would be the place furthest away from the center of mass of the whole system, right? This would be the least gravity problem. Okay, and you would have had also the possibility of, if you were going to cause Saturn to fission something off like that, then, or Neptune to fission off something like that. You know, I mean, I don't own a time machine. I wasn't there. Then it would end up in the space between Mars and one or the other, both of Saturn and Neptune, right? And that would let you that would let you work on the thing. That would let you hammer the thing into what you needed. You know, once you already had the thing, now what sort of technology would they use to cause Saturn or Neptune to fission something like that off? Maybe prayer, right? Maybe some kind of a mental, you know, or something closer to the thing we were talking about with telepathy. Who knows, right?
I put that ad in the chat. It's I'm sorry, it wasn't bigger than Jupiter. It's bigger than Earth. It's 10 times massive as Earth.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll take a look at that.
Yeah.
I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, I was gonna make a new space show, do a story on it.
Saying it orbits the sun. Okay, it's not.
Yeah, it orbits the sun.
It's
way
not
out beyond the Kuiper Belt.
Yeah, it's not aligned with some other body or something.
Well, hope not.
Yeah. As far as I know, it's like our system is stable right now, Greg. It's like there's no
I
reason.
think so too.
There's no reason to believe that anything like these biblical catastrophes is going to recur anytime soon.
No, I don't think so. You know, everything is a set of phases.
Right.
We're going through a very safe phase right now.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
There's what was I thinking? I mean, Troy's the thing that separates, Troy's and my version of a Saturn theory from what you get, like listening to Walt Thornhill, Eduardo Cardona, or David Talbot, is the idea that within Troy's and my scheme of things, everything that we see in our system now was created in the same local environment, right? You know, this Herbert thing, which was the original form of the solar system. So we don't require having to believe that anything would ever have gotten to our system from the depth of space, right? For anything to get to our system from the depths of space would be a probabilistic miracle. It would be a zero probability event. I mean, it would have to be either aimed at the Earth by somebody like Ming the Merciless from Mongo, or it would have to have been part of some kind of a giant swarm of Saturn-like objects, right? And that giant swarm would still be there, easily detectable by our satellites, by our telescopes, rather. I mean, we've got these fabulous telescopes out there in space now, which don't have to see through the Earth's atmosphere. It's like, you know, we can see like Proxima Centauri, right? We would certainly see something like that. You know, in other words, if you had some kind of a giant swarm of Saturn-sized objects, you know, and then one of them ended up being captured by our own sun, well, then, you know, we would see the giant swarm. So that there's no rational way to believe that Saturn, the Saturn system, you know, came to the Sun-Jupiter system from the depths of space, or from one of those companion galaxies, which is what Eduardo Cardona believed. Right.
Sagittarius Serpentine Galaxy.
Yeah. Right. Oh, the satellite
Now,
galaxy.
there's also the mainstream astronomers are surmising that this red dwarf came very close to the sun's heliosphere 70,000 years ago. Have you heard that story?
No.
I'll put the ad for you.
Run that by me. I'm sorry. Run that by me just another time.
Yeah, okay. I know it's late, and we're getting toward the end here, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll give you the story.
Okay. I've got a doctor appointment like early tomorrow morning, right? And it's like, I'll have to take a look at this tomorrow after all that's over.
Yes, definitely. Are you done? Or do you have more? Because that was pretty good.
The main thing that I wanted to talk to you about was the question of evolution, and
okay.
the question of
are you satisfied, or do you want to speak some more?
No, I think I've given you as much as I know about it, right? The fact that you're never going to see this cafe scene from Star Wars,
right?
That
right.
You've only got like a certain number of, you know, you've got the same RNA DNA scheme, which is the basis of all living worlds. Okay, that's what the evidence indicates. You know, you've got like the evidence from Earth and Ganymede indicates that, you know, that you've got the same basic plan for large animals, like in both places, despite them being separated by so much space.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way to believe that the one, you know, the large animals ever got from Ganymede to Earth. I mean, before this before this near capture event, which would be 40, 50, 60,000 years ago at the most, right? Prior to that, there's no way to believe anything ever got from Ganymede to Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And yet you've got the same, you've got different kinds of creatures, right? I mean, you've got the land animals on Earth, right? And then you've got the, you know, the aquatic mammals, including humans, on Ganymede, right? And you got the same basic plan for large animals, right? Like I say, the same basic RNA DNA scheme. And you know, that says that you know, you're not talking about evolution. I mean, as if you needed a final coffin nail for the theory of evolution. It's like, you know, you don't need it. No. You know, I consider myself to be a Christian, Greg, but you know, I don't believe in magic, right? I believe there's the things which we don't understand in the universe, right, or which we don't understand yet. You know, the
Our thoughts can develop our future.
Yeah.
Feeling is the secret.
Yeah,
Right. Anyway, that's a crazy picture, isn't it? I mean, that picture of Phobos. I mean, that really is, you're
Yeah.
seeing metallic strakes.
Absolutely. It does look very intricate.
Yeah, you're seeing.
but you know, though, Ted, getting back to all that, right? If you just have a look at well, use the America. You have a look at the difference in your tree systems, say on the west to the east coast, the flora and fauna, the changes in it, right? Well, it's the same. If everything's living, you could argue that it's similar, even down to humans. You're going to get differences, and you know what causes it. We don't really know because really you know the climate is similar in so many ways, right? It might be cold, it might be a bit hotter, but that doesn't mean you get the big differences you get. You know, like when you go back earlier to your formation of humans on this planet, and did they form in Australia or Europe, Africa, or you know, there's the other one too about China. You know where I'm coming from?
What evidence indicates to me is that, like, you know, that living worlds are driven by information. Okay, that, you know, when a planet becomes capable of supporting a living world, that a living world would be instantiated there somehow or other, via information and via some kind of process similar to what we call object-oriented design in computer software, right? I believe that what you call taxonomic charts, you know, which is this branching tree structure, is not evidence of evolution. It's evidence of object-oriented design. You know, in other words, that God wouldn't like the idea of reinventing wheels any more than human software developers do. You know, so it's perfectly logical. Perfectly logical, right? Yeah, you know, we're not seeing new creatures being instantiated right now. There've been like there've been at least 2 human saltations on the Earth, probably more than that, right? There's a funny kind of a thing. See, the difference is like between human groups is like mostly, I think, is like culture and technology. It's not so much race or color. You know, it's like the native Australians and are Cro-Magnon descendants, as are also the Basque people of northern Spain, southern France, right? The Gaunch people of the Canary Islands. There's several other northern European groups that are probably descended from Cro-Magnons, right? Native Australians, you would call them black if you didn't know better, right? It's like, you know, they're certainly dark skinned. The Basque people are white for all intents and purposes. People of the Canary Islands are white. So like, what the hell is the deal, right? It's like if you were to have like me and a black African and an Australian Aborigine sitting at a table, right? And you would ask the first 200 people that walked by, like, okay, you got these 3 people sitting at the table, which 2 are more closely related to each other than either is to the third? Everybody would get that wrong, right? Everybody would figure, well, it must be that the African and the Australian are, you know, they both got dark skin, right? They must be more closely related one to another than either is to Ted Holden. I believe that's wrong. I believe it's more likely the case that most Africans descended from Adam and Noah, and that the Cro-Magnon descendants aren't, right? I believe, you know, the Bible itself is a family album, right? Particularly the Old Testament. It's like, you know, the people that just sort of, you have to read between the lines, right, to understand that you've got leftover Cro-Magnons walking around. You know, where does, Cain's wife come from? Who is Cain worried about killing him when supposedly he and Adam and Eve are the only three humans on the planet, right? Well, these, I believe, are also leftover Cro-Magnons, right? When, you get this, one of the strangest passages in the Bible talks about, they said there were giants on the earth in those days, when the sons of God came in under the, took wives from the daughters of men. What is that supposed to mean, right? Well, I mean, that to me doesn't mean that you've got, Nephilim or any sort of magical creatures, fallen angels or anything like that. So what that means is I consider the sons of men probably leftover Cro-Magnons. Sons of God are like probably the Adam and Eve saltation, right? So in other words, the only thing in the universe that humans can interbreed with is other humans. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, all these people are, the same basic kind of creature, right? I mean, all humans on the earth are easily interbreedable.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So, I mean, I believe that's what that means.
And I think you said it. I think you alluded just shortly ago about, when you were talking about what was in the Bible and that. And yes, the important thing is that you need females to keep going. So if your group's starting to get short of females for whatever reason, well, you go and steal some off another group.
Right. Listen, people, it's like I kind of need to get that. It's like, I'm sort of losing it right now. If you guys don't mind. Greg, you got enough to work?
Oh, absolutely, Ted. I always do, and I want to talk to you.